All right. Hi, Jasmine.
Hi.
So thank you so much for agreeing to do this. My name is Anna Ward. I'm the Grads and Program Manager for the Feminist Research Institute at UC Davis. And I am thrilled to be talking with one of the Feminist Research Institute's graduate fellows for this year, Jasmine Wade. Jasmine is a cultural studies graduate student at UC Davis, and is here to talk about her project, Archives of Futures, which of course fit in nicely with FRI's theme this year, which was Feminist Futures. So it was a great fit, obviously. So before we really get into it, tell us a little bit about this project and the website that you created.
Awesome. So with Archive of Futures, as it stands right now, I'm calling for and curating artifacts from the next 200 years. And so what that's meant is, people have been thinking about what apps we might see in the next 200 years, what stories might come up, what people predicting, even the election in the next few months, kind of looking, or what might come of this whole COVID-19 situation, and just thinking through, imagining what our future might look like, and also maybe what we would like it to look like.
So people are essentially crafting what could be artifacts, but from moments that have not yet happened.
Exactly.
So you're having people kind of push themselves into thinking about what the possible futures might be.
Yes.
Do you have the website or some submissions that you could actually show?
So I guess first I'll show my submission to the archive. It is, because I'm that nerd, the index of a book that hasn't been written yet. And here we go. So can you see that, Anna?
Yeah.
Okay. So the book is The Rise and Fall of the American Empire, the 5th and final volume. And what I basically did was go through and create, what could be part of the index of this particular volume. And thinking about, like, I don't know, it's just, I kind of geeked out a little bit thinking about like what indexes do and how they indicate like what a text says, or the pieces that are involved in a text.
Right.
And so there's all kinds of stuff here.
I like the section on decolonization.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
I know.
There you go.
Yes. I had so much fun with this, and it feels incomplete. I think I'm submitting something that feels not quite, and I think that's been tough for me as a writer, as an artist, to submit something that doesn't feel quite as like polished. But I think I want to emphasize that I think the submissions to the archive don't have to be perfect in the way that we think of them, and I think even the kind of the roughness of the index, I think, is important. Even thinking about how futures can be flexible, or how futures can be, imperfect.
Right. Interesting section too on nostalgia.
Yes.
1950s and the 1990s. And then a subsection on delusion with respect to nostalgia.
Yeah, there's
Kamala Harris makes an entry there.
I know. So I worked on this a bit before we got as deep into the 2020 election as we did. I had different hopes.
Right.
This is the homepage. And so basically what I did for the call for submissions is I created a descendant. So my children's child, 200 or so years from now, who is inviting folks to submit artifacts from the years 2020 to 2220 that will go in this home that I imagined is kind of part museum, part art gallery, part school
Mm-hmm.
named after Octavia Butler.
Right.
And then, so I mentioned a couple examples. This is fictional, but thus far we've been pleased to receive a donation that includes photographs from the 2023 Black Women's March that led to the Don't Touch My Hair law in 2027. The original designs for the Secretary of Arts Education, Janelle Monáe's half android body. So just, ideas.
Yeah, well, I was going to say we've got to figure out how to actually actualize this by getting
Yes.
Janelle Monáe involved in the.
Yes. Well, and I think there's some stuff in the works. Like I'm working with a couple people in the Bay thinking about reenacting the march up California that the characters did in Parable of the Sower, in Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower. And so kind of what would it mean to kind of reenact those scenes from a dystopian future?
Right.
And then taking pictures and putting that in the archive. So I think it's part people submitting things, but also, I'm developing partnerships with like the Museum of Children's Art in Oakland to set up workshops and spaces where children can submit and think about the features that they want. And I'm hoping to also, do some kind of guest appearances in other places.
What's at stake for you? Why does this research matter?
I think it's hard to visualize futures that we can't see. It's hard to realize futures that we can't see. And I think there's something powerful in taking a moment to create a thing that you think might be at some point in the future, or you think might, that might exist at some time. And it's funny because I get a lot of questions about whether or not this is a utopian project. And I think no.
Right.
We've gotten some submissions where I'm kind of like, oh, okay, that's dark. But I think there's also value too in imagining, what if things don't change? What if, things don't change the way that we hope they will?
Right.
In the next 200 years, like imagining what that looks like, and then seeing, well, can we decide do otherwise? Right. Or if that's the case, how do we continue to survive? How do we continue to be resilient in the face of this thing that we've imagined might happen? Right. I think these are important conversations, and I'm also drawing on inspiration from both scholars, but also activists who are activists who are essentially doing the work of science fiction and trying to build worlds that don't exist yet. And I think we can help, in building these artifacts. I think the archive can offer inspiration. I think it can be a process of healing. I also think there's healing to be found in creating dystopian narratives.
I know this is always hard to put yourself out there in this way, but what do you think in terms of your own just expertise and specialization and all that you've read and seen and contributed? What insight can you lend people in this moment? What do you say to those folks that are bringing all these dreams to you?
I say keep dreaming.
Yeah.
I think, dreams are fertile ground. And I think they're important. They're so important. And I feel like often we think of, the billionaires of the world as being very grounded and in kind of the realm of the concrete. But part of what I've been reading, thinking about like Amy Bong's Migrant Futures and Kara Keeling's, what's the name of that book?
Queer.
We'll just edit that out.
Black Lives, Queer Futures?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Something like that.
You should figure that out.
I will double check that and link it up, don't worry. Book titles are always hard for me to remember.
Me too. But thinking about that, those books and how they present speculation as a fundamental part of capitalism.
Right.
You know, like there's speculation is constantly happening.
Yeah.
This capitalist system is always dreaming, and they're dreaming in ways that are not necessarily going to work for me. So
Right.
I need to be dreaming too.
Right. Yep.
And I think it can be tricky, right, to get so caught up in the moment, right? And not to say that the being, you know, present for the present is not important, but I also think it can be helpful to take some time to think about futures.
Right. Right.
You know, and what we're working towards, what we're building towards, if we're building
right
towards anything.
right
Yeah, I say keep dreaming.
Keep dreaming.